So, my 7-year-old daughter, Katerina, asked me on Sunday, she said, "Dad, what are you going to say at your inaug?" Because that's what 7-year-olds call this function. I said, "Katerina, I think I'm going to say, welcome." She said, "Dad, I think you should say hello. That feels more welcoming." And so, hello and welcome to Staple Inn, the spiritual home of the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. I feel really privileged to be standing here before you as the president of this actuarial body. A couple of years ago, the AGM was actually held on the same night as the Brexit referendum. That was a night of torrential rain. Staple Inn had actually flooded, and we had to go next door to Holborn Gate to listen to Colin's talk on thought leadership. And in the 12 months that followed, his theme actually resulted in the IFOA committing £1 million per annum to actuarial research via the actuarial research company that we had established. I too will miss Colin's considered insight over the next 12 months. Last year was an equally auspicious occasion. Marjorie was the first IFOA president that was not living permanently in the UK. And she has been true to her theme of advancing the profession over the past 12 months. And as such, we've seen the delivery, in particular, of Curriculum 2019, which is an important foundation in building a more flexible and relevant education system for future actuaries. So, how do I follow those two acts? Okay, so tonight, it's an equally auspicious occasion because there's an England football game going on. Not as important as the referendum, but important nevertheless, right? There was nobody wandering around with British flags 2 years ago. And your new president is actually born in Zimbabwe. So we have some continuity and hopefully some good omens for the next 12 months. I'm looking forward to working with Marjorie and with John over the next 12 months to continue to bring positive progress to the profession. I'd also like to congratulate the new council members, those of you that have stayed behind, I guess. It's been a great opportunity and a responsibility for you to be elected to council, and my only advice to you is you must enjoy it. Now, when I stood for election to president, I started off by giving council a little peek at who I am and my background. And if I recall, I told them most of the following: that I was born on the 13th of July, 1963, in Harare, Zimbabwe. I have an older sister who described me as the most beautiful baby in the world. My father was a Greek Orthodox priest, and my mother was the love of his life and his constant companion. They were born exactly 4 days apart, and they died exactly 4 months apart. It's just weird what the actuarial mind retains, right, of life. But they showed me close up how valuable commitment and respect and teamwork are to nurture positive long-term relationships. And these values have stayed with me all my life. I would like to think that in some small way, I'm honoring the memory of my parents tonight. We moved to Johannesburg in South Africa, where I grew up and was educated. I married the love of my life, Maria, in December of 1990, and I qualified as a fellow of the Faculty of Actuaries in April of 1991. As Maria never hesitates to point out, I only qualified because I married her. I'm grateful to my family for their support and their encouragement over the past 12 months and for the coming year. Thank you. Some interesting things you wouldn't know about me. I'm really crazy about football, so that's not really why we started half an hour early. And I played at a semi-professional level while I was in South Africa. After I qualified, Maria and I bought a fast food franchise, like a McDonald's. That proved to be a great commercial finishing school for me because I learned how to run a business and how to listen to and interact with people from all walks of life. I also starred in an amateur production of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in my final year at school. That's enough of the colorful stuff, right? A little bit about my professional background. I started working at a company called Metropolitan Life in Cape Town in the investment and employee benefit area in 1987. I moved to Genri, my current company, 25 years ago in 1993, also in Cape Town, doing actuarial pricing and product development and marketing. In 1999, I transferred to the UK with Genri into our financial reinsurance business. In 2003, I transferred again to head up the business development and marketing function of our UK and Irish life and health businesses here in London. And in 2014, I was appointed regional manager for these businesses. I'm grateful to Genri for supporting me in my ambition to lead our profession. And in particular to Hazel, who has now 2 versions of my diary that she needs to make sense of. I want to talk a little bit about volunteering because I'm very passionate about volunteering. I've always had the best interests of the profession at heart. My volunteering was not really about what I could gain, but what I could contribute. In fact, most of my volunteering was actually in areas I was passionate about and not directly relevant to my work. When I joined the Risk Member Interest Group in 2006, and Colin was part of that group, I believed that this was an area that the actuarial skill set was well suited to. And I wanted to work with like-minded actuaries to create this opportunity for our profession to move into an adjacent field. I am a firm believer in the robustness of the actuarial skill set and its application in many more fields. We now have the Risk Practice Board as a result of that member interest group, and we have actuaries in roles as chief risk officers. Within that practice area, I chaired the CPD and education subcommittee for a couple of years. The CIRA qualification was launched during that period. I was deputy chair of that risk board, and I finally chaired the risk board until June of 2013. And in 2013, I was actually approached by the executive, and I was asked to chair the Health and Care Board. They wanted me to, with the help of our members and with the executive, to actually establish a subcommittee structure to help put that Health and Care Board on a sound footing going forward. Through all my appointments at the IFOA and on professional bodies, I've demonstrated a style of collegiate leadership that also delivers results. I believe in the value of teamwork to achieve results. My approach has always been to encourage more people to volunteer and to get involved in order to provide an opportunity for people from diverse backgrounds to share their ideas and their energy for the benefit of their practice area and our profession, and to give these volunteers license to take responsibility and make a difference. I have something that I'm going to ask of all the actuaries in the room a little bit later, and all the actuaries and members of the IFOA. But you'll have to wait a little bit until I get there. It's also customary for there to be a presidential theme and a presidential manifesto. I don't believe in presidential manifestos. I believe in continuity. And if you've been listening carefully to what I've said right now, I've probably repeated half of what Marjorie said a little bit earlier, which is why I see some people nodding gently. The tenure of a president is a solitary year. The IFOA has a strategy which was set in 2011 by Council. It was revised in 2016 and is being brought to life by the executive staff of the IFOA. So what is the president's role in that environment? I see the primary role of the president to create an environment where we can all work together, and that's members and staff of the IFOA, with a single focus to secure the future of the profession. As a council, we'll be considering and creating strategies to manage this and other challenges facing our own and other professions in a rapidly evolving digital and data-driven world. The profession is in rude health, as Derek said earlier, through the efforts of the CEO and the IFOA directors and their teams. Our numbers have grown slightly more than 7% over the last year. That's the largest growth of any large actuarial association across the globe. More than half of our members are now resident outside of the UK. We now have our new curriculum for 2019. We have refreshed the Actuaries Code, which is the cornerstone of our professional conduct. My question always is, but is this enough? And for me, there are two key questions we need to deal with, and they are interlinked, and they are both future and externally focused questions. And the first is, what does the future actuary look like? In what industries will we be applying our skills? Because I think that's going to catch me up. It's moving too quickly. I think we need to develop a concrete picture of what that future looks like and start putting in place the structures and the work streams that will get us there. If there is one thing that has changed for me over the last year, is actually how urgent it is becoming. I will touch on this point that I'm making a little bit later, but in India there are 50,000 data scientists in their offshore center. In some respects, the future has already happened in India, and we need to act now, and we need to move quickly. Even though we've taken some decisions with respect to our education, there's further work that we need to do. Quite recently, we have taken some small steps to make courses and new techniques in data science accessible to our members. We're also thinking about an actuarial data science credential, but we need to define more clearly what our role will be going forward in this domain and more generally. So what is our unique value proposition? What is it that we bring that no other profession can bring? This is the elevator pitch we need to get right. And the second question is, what is the future of the IFOA internationally? Will we continue to be that body that helps establish international associations and then provides them with leadership in actuarial education, thought and development? How do we help these associations provide access to our profession to talented young mathematicians who sometimes don't even have the advantages of a basic education? And to that end, are we currently investing our limited time and funding with this end picture in mind? But we only need to consider the example that I just gave about the situation in India to realize that we have as much to benefit from our international connections as they do from us. I'd now like to share some of my thoughts with you around the current external environment and the challenges and opportunities that are facing us. The world around us is changing rapidly. It's worth considering for a moment the accelerated change in technology. Back in 1965, Gordon Moore, the Director of Research and Development at Fairchild Semiconductor, was asked by the American trade journal, Electronics Magazine, for his view on the future of semiconductors. Now, Moore's data over a 12-month period had revealed a doubling in processing speeds, while the size and the cost of the microprocessors had halved, an effect that has now become known as Moore's law. Although the time horizon for that law is now stretched to 18 months, the pace of improvement in capability and power has persisted for over 50 years. So there's no sense that that improvement is slowing down. Convergence and transformation in physical, biological, and digital environments of society are the effects of the fourth industrial revolution, an era which was first recognized at the World Economic Forum in 2016. The fourth industrial revolution reflects a perception that change happens in all spheres simultaneously, and that will have a greater potential to disrupt the status quo. More powerful computing and new technologies will exponentially accelerate that effect, bringing rapid and continuous change and driving the creation of more and more data. But to me, that sounds like a world calling out for the actuary. This is the world of the actuary as a thought leader, with deference to Colin's theme. Future fit and ready, with deference to Marjorie. A more nimble and flexible actuary to adapt to the waves of change that are coming. An actuary ready and willing to engage and collaborate with other professionals to shape and make sense of the future world. This is a world that will need a moral and ethical compass to ensure that the injudicious use of that data doesn't result in exclusion, in disparity, and in poverty. There's a real risk that all this data and the talk of greater personalization chips away at the fundamental concept of insurance, which is all about the spreading of risk through risk pooling. The recent announcement of our collaboration with the Royal Statistical Society on the ethical use of data is a positive step we have taken in this direction. As a profession, we also have a public interest obligation that we should not forget. There are major societal issues in this country and across the globe that can benefit from our skills and experience. You only need to think of the impact that an aging population will have, or is already having, on the NHS and the funding for social care. And this is an area I'm particularly passionate about. You only need to realize that we have a role. No, we probably have a responsibility to ensure the dignity, the sense of community, and respect that we all deserve when we get old. This isn't only about money. So what could happen to the actuarial profession in this era of disruption? We've seen the demise of Blockbuster, the rise of Netflix. The latter started simply by stripping costs out of the system. They didn't have a high street presence, but they didn't really rest on their laurels. They established their supremacy and then disrupted themselves by becoming a streaming business, and have now reinvented themselves once again to become a content producer. We're seeing numerous retailers in the UK battling with this change in consumer buying habits. So what will happen to our profession? We've seen the advent of another data analytic profession, that of the data scientist. IBM is projecting that there will be 3 million data science roles in the US by 2020, most of them in financial services. We are, after all, currently a global profession of no more than 150,000 actuaries and students. Could we be swallowed up? I've personally done some in-depth research on the www.willrobotstakemyjob.com website. It assures me that actuaries have a small, only a 21% chance of being disrupted. And I know for many actuaries in the room, we take 21% to equal 100%, don't we? They actually add a qualifying no worries statement. And there's an expectation that we will grow by 28% globally over the next 5 to 10 years. So nothing to worry about, right? But more than that though, history is on our side. We are a remarkably flexible and adaptable profession that has expanded into fields outside of our historical domains of life insurance and pensions. There are actuaries with leading roles in general insurance, asset management, risk management, and banking today. We now have a resource and environment board and have signed up to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. There are actuaries that have reinvented themselves from defined benefit pension scheme advisors and are now advisors on pensions to the man on the street. The Young Actuary of the Year is a young man that is the founder of a company called Spixie that uses artificial intelligence to assist people in making applications for insurance. There is an impressive young woman who is the managing director of a company called BuzzVault that is disrupting and revolutionizing home contents insurance. There is another not so young actuary who's moved out of senior roles in the corporate sphere and is the founder of a company seeking to disrupt the invoice financing industry. There are actuaries in Australia that are valuing the liabilities under the Qantas airline loyalty program. Let's also not forget the senior actuaries that are the group CFO of a FTSE 100 company, the director responsible for insurance across life and general insurance for one of the largest insurers in the UK, the chairman of a mortgage and equity release business, the founders of Discovery Life, the parent company of Vitality in this country, are actuaries. So let's take some confidence from these and other inspirational actuaries and step out of the shadows. I'm sorry you've had to wait this long to actually hear what my theme is for this year. Let's step out of the shadows. One of my predecessors, who's here tonight, Fiona Morrison, had a similar theme. Hers was around promotion, and one that I would like to build on and re-emphasize this year. So within my newfound theme, here's my commitment to you. I see my role as president to be the lead ambassador of the IFOA in my year, and that is what I will strive to do. I will be visible to our members and externally. I've already had the pleasure of providing oral evidence to an all-party parliamentary subcommittee on social care a few weeks ago. But there is in return, what would I like to see of our membership? In the next 12 months, or forever, if that's what you choose to do. I'm asking each one of you to tell at least one more person who is not an actuary that you are an actuary, and to tell them what you do. And now, why is this important? Well, as I said before, there are many, many more areas where our skills can add value, but only if people know to ask. And people won't know to ask if they've never heard of us. Influence is also linked to familiarity. So if we really want our voice to be heard as we shape progress this century, we need plenty of people to appreciate why we can contribute. So my challenge to you again is find someone who hasn't heard of actuaries, or find someone who has heard of us but doesn't quite understand us. There's probably many of those around. Take the time to tell them about your job, your work, your skills. Don't try and generalize, make it specific, because you should be able to talk about yourself quite easily. Tell them how your role and our collective role adds value to business and to society. Now, we also want to capture all the conversations that you're having. So we will be starting a social media campaign on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook under the hashtag #IamAnActuary. where you can share the outcome of your conversations and start a global dialogue about the value of actuaries. And that is how I propose we can all step out of the shadows and ensure a more relevant future for our profession. Thank you. Please.